Welcome to Future-Proof Business, smart strategies, real insights, and tools to lead and scale in a fast-changing world. Let's future-proof your success.
Welcome to the Inspire and Impact podcast show. I'm your host, Daniel Rosenstein. Today, I have the honor of interviewing Kevin Palmieri. Kevin, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, my friend. I'm excited to chat.
Definitely. Can you share a little bit about yourself with the audience?
Yes, today I am the founder and the host of Next Level University, a global top 100 podcast with 2,150 episodes as of today. And I own my own business, and it's weird because I never thought I was going to be here. So it's been a weird journey for sure.
I want to first say congratulations on all your success.
Thank you.
And it's nice to see you smile and enthusiastic about everything, and things are going really great. But as you mentioned, things have always been really amazing. So I want to ask you, because you mentioned on your website that at one point, you found your rock bottom, that how a basement. Can you share what that moment taught you about yourself, or when you hit rock bottom? What did you learn? What were the life lessons?
Yeah. So when I hit rock bottom, I was externally, quote unquote, the most successful I'd ever been. And I had all the things that anybody could ever want. I had a beautiful partner. I had just won a bodybuilding show. I had a 6-figure income. I had all the things that you could want. The lesson it taught me was very rarely will external accomplishments fill in internal voids. Daniel, when I was growing up, I felt insignificant. I didn't have a lot of money, and I never thought I was going to be successful. So I assumed if I just did those things, I would feel good about me. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. But yeah, that was a really important lesson for me. And a second part of that lesson was the better you understand yourself, the better you can take care of yourself. I didn't really have any self-awareness at that point in my life, unfortunately.
So what was the pivotal mindset shifts you had to make to go from rock bottom to where you are today?
You are far more capable. This is me talking to myself. You are far more capable of changing and molding yourself than you ever imagined. I was somebody who had a very fixed mindset. I thought the way I am today is the way I am going to be forever. I didn't understand that learning was valuable. I genuinely did not understand why people would read books. It just didn't make any sense to me. I was convinced that I was stuck the way I was forever. So the mindset shift for me was, Kev, you can change. The reason you haven't changed is because you haven't focused on it. And then that was the kick in the butt that I needed to start learning and start growing and practicing tracking habits and all that. But before that, very honestly, I had not read a book since high school. So that was the kick in the butt I needed, was at that point.
So what made that shift that compelled you to start reading?
I just realized that for most of my life, I had lived unconsciously. It was the massive pain of my girlfriend leaving me losing a lot of money because work got slow. It was mostly pain. I was going through a lot of rough things in life. And I think I finally was ready to look in the mirror and understand that my life is not going to change until I do. And you talked to my business partner, Alan. I started talking to him and we became very close, and he was like a mentor for me. He said, Kev, if you start reading books, you'll feel better about yourself. And it was really that. It was a perfect storm of pain, possibility, and then I would say having a mentor near me who wanted me to succeed and knew how to help me do it.
So was there any particular book that you found really helpful?
To this day, I think the book that I recommend more than any other book is called Mindsets by Carol Dweck. And it's all about the difference between having a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. That, for me, when I first read that, I remember thinking, oh my goodness, all the examples she's using of somebody having a fixed mindset is exactly how I think. Okay, maybe we're onto something here. So that book I always recommend. I think that's a really good place to start. And that book changed my life in many ways. And then, from there, I read a lot more books. But that is the one that was pivotal for my growth for sure.
So how did achieving what a lot of people will call the American dream, like you said, having 6 figures, the girlfriend, all those wonderful things, made you realize you're chasing the wrong goals in life in terms of true happiness and freedom?
Yeah. This is always a fine line for me because I thought it was going to fix me. I thought when I accomplished those things internally, I was going to feel great. That was not the case. When I started to connect the dots is after I started the podcast, because I started to feel, and I'm curious to your take on this, but I started to feel fulfillment when I did the podcast. It was like, oh, interesting. This is something I really enjoy. And I get this really weird feeling when I'm doing it and after I do it. There's got to be something to that. That became a suggestion to me that fulfillment was probably a better aim than quote unquote success. Because now I think more than ever that fulfillment leads to success. So it was more a realignment than it was anything else. But yeah, it was fulfillment. I had felt fulfillment for the first time. I said I would like to feel more of that. And that became the new target, so to speak.
Oh, that's really amazing. Yeah. I mean, I can agree with you on that. Like when I started doing podcasting, I started feeling also fulfilled. And it was weird about podcasting. I wouldn't say call it a weird feeling for me. To me, it was a really good feeling because, even sometimes I felt like I was having like a bad day. After I do a podcast, I feel so much better. Like it was really, that was weird. It's because I've had a lot of jobs, a lot of careers in my life, and a lot of other jobs that I did in the past. It's like, I feel worse doing it. It's like,
I understand.
Something like the clock watcher, it's like, all right, you go in the office to work, and it's like, when are you getting out of it? It's kind of like a job as a mini jail, but like podcasting was never felt like that. It is very fulfilling because you meet a lot of great people, you connect to a lot of great people, and the messaging you're sending out to the whole world, because podcasting is global, is one about, how to improve people's lives, whatever way that is, like improving your business, improving your finances, improving your relationships, improving your health, whatever it is. They're talking about positive things, which is, I think, really important because so many people in the world, I think, today are very negative.
Yeah.
You listen to the news, it's all negative. So I think podcasting, I think it's become a very important platform that we can talk about issues that a lot of people are not talking about. Like you said, like a lot of people are not looking themselves in the mirror, discuss real topics, real solutions, show different points of view. And, because of our technology, we can talk to people all around the world. It's not just somebody you're talking to like Bob and exterminator. And you talk to people from all over the place and get really different perspectives, which to me really helps have a higher level of understanding consciousness because everybody has different understanding, especially like you talk to people in different countries that come from different cultures and stuff. So they have a really different view of different thinking because they grew up differently.
Yeah.
It's interesting, and when you start seeing these things, you see what you're really grateful for or things that like you didn't see yourself in or how you're living that could be improved on. So yeah, podcasting has been a really positive shift for me. It's been really wonderful.
Yes. See, again, I mirror all that and I second all that. And it is weird that even on the worst days when you do something you love, it's fulfilling. So I can second that for sure.
So what do you think are some like the top misconceptions people have about personal growth?
That it should be easy, that it never hurts. I think one of the downsides of growth is, to your point, you're talking about raising consciousness. Sometimes that's painful. It's painful to look in the mirror and realize you've been making excuses and you're holding yourself back. It's painful when you grow and then you look around and say, oh, these friends that I have aren't necessarily the friends that I want to carry into the future with me. So yeah, one thing is it's all sunshine and rainbows. That's not real. I think the second thing is it's going to make my relationships better. It will make certain relationships better for sure. But by definition, it will also create more resistance in other relationships. That's a big thing. And then I think the third thing is I'll recognize my growth. A lot of times you're growing so incrementally just on a day-to-day basis that you won't recognize it for a month or 2 months or 6 months, but it doesn't mean it's not happening, whether it's in a positive direction or a negative. Those are the big three that jump out to me right off the top.
So what advice do you give to people that may be also hitting rock bottom? How do you rebuild your self-worth? And getting up to higher levels of consciousness that we were talking about.
I think it's an unsexy piece of advice that a lot of people probably don't want to hear, but you have to start incredibly small. You don't get to rock bottom usually. It doesn't happen in one day. It doesn't happen in one fell swoop. It's usually a series of small events that compounds over time. You're going to get out the same way. For you, it might be, you know what? I'm going to go sign up for a gym membership. You know what? I'm going to text that person I haven't talked to and see if they want to spend some time together. I'm going to get a therapist. I'm going to get a coach. I'm going to message my family. It most likely is not going to be like a rocky montage where you do 8 years of training in 8 minutes and everything goes away. It's going to take a while. So I would say start very small. That would be part one. And then let's try to identify how we got here in the first place. It's really easy to lose sight of the things that we did that brought us there in the first place. So identify how we got here and then break the climbing from rock bottom into very small, digestible, bite-sized pieces. And I'm willing to bet you will have a more successful journey out of there than somebody who just thinks it's going to happen overnight. There's no way. You didn't get there overnight.
So you're talking about like joining a gym, which, I think a lot of people can relate to that, especially like around New Year's when people think about losing weight, getting in shape, that type of thing. But a lot of times people, they either talk about it and they don't do it, or they join and then, 2 months later they drop out. Why is consistency one of the most underrated factors like in business and success?
Because unless you get lucky, which most of us will not, the best way to guarantee your success, for lack of better phrasing, is just to do it more consistently than anybody else. That's part one. Part two, you get really good at things when you do them repeatedly. So the things that you are really good at out there, I'm willing to bet you've done them more than anything else. That's a big piece of it. And then the third piece, that it takes more time to get here, but eventually when you do something consistently, it becomes a part of your identity. When somebody meets me and they say, "What do you do?" I say, "I'm a podcaster." It's part of my identity. This is what I do. I've done it 1,000 times or however many thousands of times. This is what I do. Just if you smoke cigarettes consistently, you say, "I'm a smoker." That becomes a part of your identity. So it's really those three pieces. And the example I always use for this, Daniel, is if I met you tomorrow and I said, "Hey, I will give you $1 million if the next time I see you, let's say it's 1 year from today, you can do the splits. You can get so flexible that you'll be able to do the splits." You're going to say, "Okay, cool. I want that $1 million. I'm going to practice the splits every day. That's as much as I can do. That's as consistent as I can be. I'm going to practice them every day." But if you said, "You know what? I'm going to take it easy. I'll only practice it 3 times a week," the odds of you accomplishing that goal go down dramatically. If you only do it once a week, I don't think you're probably going to end up getting the $1 million. And I think that's a really good example of why consistency is so important. It just increases the probability that you're going to be successful.
But like you talked about a lot of times that you're saying you need to make small incremental changes, but that's what happens is when people see, because you said like a lot of people in their mind, they have this false belief that they want this overnight success. You said like, I start a business and making $1 million when next week and all is great. But then I think the same thing with, like losing weight. If they got joined the gym and then a week later they lost 20 pounds. That for most people, as you said, it's not reality. For some it is. Most people don't make $1 million and lose a lot of weight right away. It's, you said, small incremental changes. That's like an issue for a lot of people because when they don't see these big positive changes right away, they start to get frustrated and they start dropping out. So how can people stay committed when they're seeing either, the results are very slow or almost visible, or like they don't, maybe there are changes, but they're not really seeing anything? How can people stay committed when you're not seeing these big shifts happen?
Yeah, one way is you find yourself a peak performance partner, or you find yourself an accountability partner to help you do the thing. So it's not just about the goal. It's about the fact that you're doing it with somebody else who's going to help you stay committed and accountable. That's one. Another thing, and this works really well, it's something called a commitment device. So this is all you do. You have a commitment with yourself or somebody else, and you say, "I am going to accomplish X amount of workouts by X date, or I am going to donate $100, $500, $1,000, whatever, to a charity that I don't believe in, or I'm going to invest in a business that I don't believe in. So if you had somebody in your family who passed away because they got cancer after smoking cigarettes, you're not going to want to spend $500 on stocks for a cigarette company. If you make that commitment with yourself, you are literally creating necessity for you to practice the behavior because you don't want to have to do something that's out of alignment with yourself. That's a really good way to do it. Another simple way is, instead of focusing on the result, focus on the process. The result is, I'm going to lose 10 pounds in 10 weeks. The process is, I'm going to go to the gym 5 times per week, 3 times per week, whatever it is. The process is usually easier to track because you give yourself a check mark every time you accomplish it. And honestly, a lot of times people do way better with that because the result is a byproduct of the process. If you're out there right now and it's the scale's not moving and nothing's working and it's not worth it, I would start tracking the process instead of the results. And I'm willing to bet you'll get more dopamine spikes when you do that.
So do you have any daily habits that you can share with our audience that are helping you, continue on a high performance pace?
Yeah.
Keep you like, at the top of your game?
Yeah. So every day these are my habits. I don't do them every day. Exercise 30 minutes. I usually do that 6 times a week. Learn for 30 minutes, whether that's reading a book, audiobook, podcast, YouTube channel, whatever that is. Track my finances every day. Track the business finances every day. Journal every day. Track my weight every day. Track my calories every day. Like, you could see, that's like health and wealth. And then a few simple relationship habits I have. One is called Kitchen Man. My wife cannot stand when our kitchen is dirty. I hate doing the dishes. She hates doing the dishes more. So I make sure that the kitchen is not a mess. And then there's something called the gratitude game that my wife and I do every night before bed, where we each say one thing that we're grateful for about one another. All you have to do, ignore most of those. You don't have to start there. You can have one under health, one under wealth, and then one under love. If you wage yourself every day, track your bank account every day, and then let's say you journaled for self-love, that's a really good place to start. And then you can always add as you do that more and more. I think I started with 3 habits back in 2018, and now I have a lot more. But yeah, the goal is to make those as non-negotiable as possible, because that is going to dictate what my future looks like. Right? Your future 5 years from today is based on the habits that you're practicing today.
It's really true. I mean, you often talk about like heart-driven, like but no BS coaching. What does that philosophy look like in action, in real life?
Heart-driven means I'm going to tell you the truth based on the fact that I care enough to do it. And it's not from a place of ego. It's not from a place of I need to be right. It's a place of, if I have the answer to the question that you're asking, I want to make sure I give you the answer. So that's the heart-driven. The no BS part is I'm going to tell you the truth. I don't want to lie to you. I don't want to sugarcoat it. I don't want to deceive you into thinking it's going to be easier than it's going to be. Our podcast is really hard, and our coaching is really straightforward, and it's unsexy, and it's the fundamentals. A lot of what I tell you is not going to be fun, and it's not going to be sexy, but I do believe it will work with a very high probability. So I don't expect it to be the most entertaining, but I do think it can be very transformational. That's really what it means to us. It's not exciting. It's not sexy. But it's built on the fundamentals that have helped us get to where we are today. And I think we need more fundamentals and less flashy stuff that doesn't actually work.
So can you tell us, with the audience, like what type of podcast do you have? What are the topics you talk about?
We talk about all things peak performance. So we talk about habit tracking, and we talk about goal setting, and we talk about money, and we talk about relationships and self-belief and self-worth and how to be more productive and all of that. Our ultimate goal is to help people level up their life, their love, their health, and their wealth. We do an episode every day, so it's a little bit every day. That is it. We are the 20 to 40 minute episode where you can tune in and get a little bit better for that day. And then we're going to be there tomorrow to help you do the same exact thing.
So as a podcast coach, like what's the number one thing you think that holds people back from leveling up?
As in terms of podcasters?
Yeah.
Most people just aren't that committed. It's very easy to start a podcast now. It costs almost $0 depending on how you do it. So the barrier to entry is really low, but a lot of people just want to kick the tires and see if it's going to be the thing that makes them successful. So the commitment level, if it's not high, almost nothing is going to happen. That's a massive piece of it. The other thing is most people don't want to review their content. That's one of the more common things.
Yeah.
They do the episodes and they do a lot of episodes. And then I say, all right, what is the thing that you notice about yourself when you listen back? And they say, oh, I don't listen to my own stuff. You got to listen to your own stuff. If you don't listen to your own stuff, you don't know what's good, what's bad, any of that. And then most people don't want to make their life harder. A podcast is really challenging. It's not easy. You got to book guests or you got to come up with topics and you got to do social media. And there's a lot of moving pieces in a podcast. So a lot of people want the upside of the podcast without any of the downsides. And if you have a boatload of money, you can pay somebody to do everything. So I guess that's that. But the vast majority of podcasters are going to have to start out and they're going to have to do the editing and they're going to have to do the social media. And it's a lot more than people realize when they first get into it. So I think one of the things that stops them from getting to the next level is just the overwhelm of how much there is to do on the day-to-day basis as a podcast host.
That's what happened to me. Before I started the podcast, I was like, oh, this is simple and easy. Just talk to people for a few minutes, upload the video, and then you're good to go. And then as you said, like I found out there's so much more to podcast than just that. Yep. And it was over the shot for me because I was not expecting it to be. I thought it'll be very simple and easy. And in some ways it is compared to some other jobs, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And there's a lot of parts and components and nuances that you have to be aware of that I was not. And it was definitely like a shock for me at first. Eventually I got used to it, but it was definitely, oh, wow, this is a lot more.
It's like any other business. A podcast is a business. It's just a business that doesn't pay for a while. Like a lot of businesses don't pay for a while, but it's the same. You got to have the same mindset of, all right, I'm going to dedicate a year or 2 years into building this. And it's going to be a lot of work and I'm going to have to learn things that I don't know how to do. And yeah, I just think the commitment level is way higher than most people realize because if you haven't studied it, of course, right? Most things are way harder than we give credit to. And it's only through actually practicing the thing that we give credit to the fact that it's that hard.
So you talked about before about the importance of like self-awareness that was the key to turn things around. How do you foster self-awareness when you work with your coaching clients?
One of my favorite questions ever of all time is why. I just will ask why and why and why. And if you ask why enough times, you get to some really deep places. So I'm always asking. One of my favorite questions is, what does that mean about you? So I guess the simplest answer is I like to ask very specific questions that are philosophical in nature, but create opportunity for a deeper conversation. So much of coaching, depending on how you do it, is really just deep conversation. I'm convinced if you have deep conversations with somebody who can help guide you there, you'll learn more about yourself from those conversations than if you don't necessarily have to have somebody that's coaching you. Let me ask you this question and here's the answer. So I like to do it through really deep conversations, a lot of reflection, and a lot of vulnerability. I really want whoever I'm talking to feel safe to share and open up and be vulnerable. So yeah, that's a big thing. But it's like this. You and I are talking, and if you asked me why, we'd get to a really deep place of, I feel like it's probably because of this vulnerable thing, and there would be transformation that would happen from that.
And you talked about before about being in a place of pain. I think a lot of people can relate to that because, life is full of ups and downs. Sometimes things are going really well, and sometimes they're not. And so what advice can you give to people that are in that place, they're feeling a lot of pain in their life, like they're job's not working well, the business not working well, their career, the money that they're making is not what they want, or the relationship's not what they want. How can you transform pain into power?
You got to take a real honest look at the pain to figure out what part in that pain are you creating. That's one. And then from there, we have to create some level of action plan. Does the job suck right now because of a certain boss, or was there something that changed circumstantially, or have you fallen out of love with the job, or has your family changed the way that you feel about your job? Let's identify that. And then from there, we have to take some level of action. And I think that's where a lot of us get stuck. A lot of us get stuck at, I hate my job, but, or this relationship is no longer aligned, but, or I don't really resonate with my friends anymore, but. That's where the growth is. So there's a big difference. I think you alluded to this earlier, Daniel. A lot of us talk about it. This job sucks. I'm going to leave. I understand. I've been there many times. And I always tried to find a job when I felt that way. It wasn't always better. And circumstantially, I didn't have a family to take care of, so it was a little bit easier for me to do that. The action has to meet the anger. The action has to meet the frustration. The action has to meet the emotion. Because if it doesn't, we just go into work on Monday and say, I hate this job, and that it just is rinse and repeat. If the action does not match the emotion, unfortunately, the emotion is just going to continue cycling over and over again. So that's an unsexy answer, but you have to take an action towards the direction of the progress that you feel you need to make.
So now you've been on this journey for some time, you've done all this personal growth, how's it impacted your relationships?
The relationships that matter the most to me have gotten much better and much deeper. Some of the relationships that were like fringe relationships of this person's just a friend that I see every once in a while, those have essentially gone away for the most part. I am very quality over quantity. So I don't have that many friends, quote unquote. But the people I do have in my life are amazing people who are character driven, and they're just really good people because that's who I want to surround myself with. But very honestly, there are times of loneliness, and there have been times where I've had to let go of people that had a lot of time in my life. I mean, I had people that I was friends with since freshman year in high school who I stopped talking to when I was like 26. So I had known them for 10, 15 years in some cases, unfortunately. Friendships are usually built on one of three things: core values, core beliefs, or core aspirations. Core values, we played baseball together in high school. Awesome. Core beliefs, we like the same kind of music. Awesome. Core aspirations or goals. So we loved going to the gym together. Awesome. As we get older, those things change. And because of that, friendships and relationships are going to change too. So it's changed in positive ways and negative ways, but I do believe the positive ways far outweigh the negative.
So what advice do you give to people about building unshakable self-confidence so they can feel better about themselves, more optimistic about their futures?
I don't think unshakable exists. At least I haven't found it yet, right? I'm not unshakable by any stretch of the imagination. I think you can definitely level it up. 3 steps that have worked really well for me: state, prove, self-assign. So you state, let's say you're somebody who wants to approach women and you don't have confidence. Cool. State, today, I am going to speak to one person, one woman, one attractive woman, whatever. I'm going to go talk to one person. Cool. State it. Prove. You got to go actually do it. Right? So let's make this full circle. There's somebody out there right now who keeps saying to themselves, I'm so sick of being single. I don't want to be single anymore. I want to find a girlfriend. Cool. That's emotion. All right, let's turn that emotion into action. State. Today, I'm going to go talk to somebody I find attractive. Awesome. Prove. When the moment comes and when your heart is beating out of your chest, you got to go do the thing you said you were going to do. We have to prove it to ourselves. Okay. After we do that, regardless of outcome, doesn't matter if it goes well or not, we self-assign. I said I was going to do it. I did it. Now I give myself credit. If you do that over and over and over and over, again, start small and work your way up, you will have more confidence because you have more repetition. And you have more times you said you were going to do it, more times that you proved to yourself that you were going to do it, and more times you got the good feelings of doing it. And again, there's something right now you can most likely think of where you said you were going to do it, you proved to yourself that you were capable of doing it, and you self-assigned, and you probably have a lot of confidence. That is the best answer I can give. I have done that 3,500 times as a podcaster, and that's the only reason I have way more belief in myself than I did at the beginning.
Thank you. That's really good advice. It's what you're saying is really great because it's like you really put things in perspective about building self-confidence.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I mean, now that you've done like thousands of interviews, like through your podcast, can you even share like what has been like something really surprising that you weren't expecting or something like new to learn that's really interesting? Now that you've done so many podcasts, it's probably something that like either threw your curveball or a new learning, new understanding.
I mean, there's a bunch. One is a lesson that just jumped off the page over and over again. We would interview someone and they would have this amazing story of overcoming adversity and going through trauma or just overcoming something. And I would say, we'll probably never hear a story like that again. And then next week we had a guest on who had their own unique version of the same story of overcoming something just unimaginable. So I realized that your adversity, what you're working through right now, can eventually become your advantage later in life, potentially. We talked about my rock bottom moment and me having to figure out how to overcome that. And honestly, in a lot of ways, that has become my advantage. So that is something that jumped off the page for sure. And I think the other thing is, especially in the beginning, we would interview people who I assumed had everything figured out. They just knew everything about everything. And they know their thing really well. But outside of that, they didn't really know that much more about the world than I did, which was always a surprise to me. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. It was very much my perception of people who were ahead of me was just way off. So the thing is, a lot of people are really good in one silo. And when it comes to other parts and other facets of life, they're no more knowledgeable than the average person. And that always really jumped off the page to me. So that was always one that surprised me. In terms of like specific stories, I don't know if I have any that I can remember, but those are like the blanket lessons that jumped off the page for me.
That's really interesting. You say these things because I wasn't expecting you to say that. I thought you were going to say something. So give us some, weird or funny story.
Yeah, we had a lot of really amazing guests who were like really successful but nothing ever really surprised me. And maybe that's because I used to do so much research. Daniel, my goal was to know everything about the guest before I talked to them. So there very rarely was a surprise for me. So that's probably why. It was more the human interaction that surprised me.
So what do you wish you knew about success like 10 years ago? Now.
I wish I knew how to actually be successful. I would say success is harder to maintain than it is to get in the first place. A lot of us are worried about achieving a result or achieving a goal or achieving success. I think keeping it is as hard as getting it in the first place because you lose you don't lose all the drive, but if your goal is to make $1 million and then you make $1 million, then what? Then you have to keep up all the things that you had to do in order to make the $1 million. So I wish I understood that keeping success is probably harder than achieving it in the first place because you lose a lot of the good feelings and it becomes a grind. So I wish that. And then some of the people that were rooting for you when you weren't successful don't root for you anymore when you are successful for whatever reason. That's been an interesting thing. I think everybody loves to root for the underdog, but when the underdog starts winning some games, it's not as easy to root for that person. So that's been an interesting surprise.
It's interesting how people react to people's, where they are in life. As you said, as seems like also we attract certain people in our life. Like when we're not successful, we're attracting a certain type of people into our lives versus that we're, a lot more successful. We start attracting different people.
Yep.
Not always, but sometimes we attract like a different crowd of people or different type of people. And sometimes we gain friends, lose friends.
That is the journey of life, I think, right? As we evolve, everything changes. I used to going out and partying. I don't do that anymore. So any of my friendships and any of my relationships that were built on that, we don't really have any reason to hang out anymore, right? So that's why growth is so hard, because not everybody is growing at the same rate in the same direction. And that creates resistance. It can create stretching. It can create a lot of stuff. It's hard. Growth is hard.
So talking about goals, what's your next big goal or dream you're working on towards at this point?
Our goal is to be completely out of all personal and business debt by the end of the year. So most businesses carry debt. It's just the way businesses are run usually. And we've done that obviously to get to where we are. So yeah, completely out of debt is our next main focus because the business has grown a lot and we want to shore that up. I'd say that's the next main focus. The next goal for the podcast is 2,200 episodes because we're 2,150. So that's the next goal, another 50 episodes until another milestone for that.
Oh, congratulations. I hope you achieve those goals.
I appreciate that very much.
I think it's achievable the way you're doing it right now. So what advice can you give to the listeners? Keep talking about, taking steps and stuff. If they're stuck at taking that first step, what advice can you give for them to take action on that first step?
One, make it smaller. Again, the first step, the reason New Year's resolutions don't work is because they're too big. That's usually why they don't work. We want to go from not exercising to exercising every day for the next year. It's just not realistic. Make it smaller. That's one. Let's really sit down and talk about why do I actually want to do this? One of the common things when you're talking to people about exercise and going to the gym and fitness and weight loss, and I want to be healthier. Same. And is that really what you want, or do you want to look good on the beach this year? Because if that's the case, we can leverage that. Let's use the reality of the situation to help us be more inspired and more motivated. So that's the second one. And then find somebody to help you stay accountable. Find someone whose belief you can borrow. If the reason you're not doing the thing is because you're afraid, find someone who will support you in doing that thing that's uncomfortable. If you're not doing the thing because you don't know how, find somebody or find an article or find a podcast or a YouTube channel that can help you figure out what the how is. It's usually because we don't know how, we don't know why, or we don't have someone in our corner who can help us. And if you can solve one of those three problems or all three, you'll probably be in a better place. And then I think just going back to the first part, then make it smaller. Make it smaller. We procrastinate things that we don't think we can eat all at once. So if you know you can actually accomplish the thing, you're more willing to do it.
So can you tell the audience about your coaching? What type of coaching do you offer? Who do you serve with your coaching?
So at this point, we have 3 different types of coaching. So I coach podcasters, speakers, and coaches now. So I help people grow their business, grow their podcast, grow their coaching practice. In the middle of our coaching, we have holistic self-improvement coaching. So this is somebody who listens to the podcast and they want better habits. They want to make more money personally. They want help with their relationship. They want help with their health. That's our personal development coaching. And then my business partner does business coaching. So he works with high-level business owners who are looking to make more money. They need help with leadership. They need help with investment and how to grow and scale their business. So I'm lucky where this was my dream come true to get to work with podcasters and speakers and coaches. We're always going to have people who listen to the podcast who want to go deeper in their own personal development journey. And as business owners, we've had to learn a lot about business in order to get to where we are. So my business partner coaches business owners now.
So if somebody had a question about our conversation today or interested in working with you, what are the best ways they can reach out to you?
My email is kevin@nextleveluniverse.com. I do my own emails. I am happy to answer any question you have, podcast, personal development, whatever. Yeah, feel free to email me. I'm happy to answer anything you got.
Great. Kevin, we're running out of time for our podcast today. What are the final words to share with our audience before we wrap up the conversation?
I would say the biggest difference between the person you are today and the person you want to be eventually is your habits. So if you start changing your habits, I know it's not going to feel like anything is changing, but you are quite literally changing your future. And 5 years from today, you will notice it. 4 years from today, you will notice it. You won't notice it immediately, but you don't notice almost anything immediately. So yeah, the biggest difference is your habits, and you can change your habits. And when you change your habits, you change your life.
Well, Kevin, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing about your experiences and all your knowledge and wisdom you gained over the years. I really appreciate it. I'm sure a lot of people in the audience will too. You have so much a wealth of information, and I appreciate all your authenticity and being willing to humble enough to share all about, the good, bad, and the ugly with everybody. That was really awesome. So
Thank you
so much for doing it.
I appreciate you having me, Daniel. I appreciate it very much.